Good afternoon and welcome to this, our fifth session in the Summer School 2025. Today the subject matter is rolling up the detail, or what to report in risk management. Now, this will be revisioned for many of you, but I hope that there'll be some ideas and some inspiration for all of you. If we're talking about reporting to the board, you really want to get it into the least amount of pages or slides or however you report, because nobody wants to read 50 pages on risk. Okay, so I got 12 minutes. I'm going to give you 3 minutes of questions at the end. So very quickly about us, I think I've had a look and a lot of you know us already, so I'll make this brief. We see ourselves as risk and compliance professionals, like many of you on the call today. And we offer a governance, risk and compliance solution, a SaaS solution in the cloud. And we cover a lot of the areas of risk, but we cover incidents and tasks and meetings and lots of other stuff as well. We're headquartered in Ireland. We have a presence in the UK, and we cover a number of sectors, I suppose chiefly financial services sector, housing, insurance, the public sector as well, and a few other smaller sectors. That's us. Our product has been recognised with a number of awards over the last few years, which we're very proud of. I like this Einstein quote. I like a lot of quotes from Einstein, but this one in particular. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. That's so well put. If you're going to explain it simply to a board, succinctly, you got to understand the detail. You got to study it and compress all of that into the 5 or 10 minutes you might have when you're standing up speaking in front of the board or the senior management team, if you're the one doing the reporting. So on to today. I think when you're reporting to any meeting, you've got to understand the purpose. First of all, the purpose of the meeting, perhaps, is the meeting based on a decision for a project, or is the meeting at the monthly board meeting or whatever. So understand the purpose of the meeting and the purpose of your report. And we'll talk about that in a moment. You want to report on your performance of if you're reporting on behalf of the risk management team, and it might be just yourself, what have you done? What's the status? Are things getting better or getting worse? Compliance assurance. Well, assurance, if you're reporting to the board, people who are accountable, and that's generally people on the board or senior executive, they want assurance. They want assurance that, one, that the organization is compliant and that the risks that the organization faces are under control. And if they're not under control, that you're monitoring them very closely, at least. I think you want to report on the actions you've taken, because, yeah, let the world know. Don't hide your light under a bushel. But also, if I'm a board member, a non-executive board member, then I want assurance that not only have you identified the risk, but you're actually doing something about it, because I will ask. And finally, and it's kind of what I'm trying to get across in this meeting, summarizing the data, are the ways you can actually communicate a big picture using graphics, using some techniques to get the message across. So on to purpose. What is the purpose of the report? I'll say report, and for this I'm going to, because the time is short, I'm going to assume it's reporting to the board. If you're reporting at an operational level, yes, you will have more detail, and you might focus on one particular area like money laundering if you're reporting that. But assume we're talking about high level, and we're talking about all risks, and we're talking to the board, just to give it context here. You might be informing the board, maybe on progress on the risk management program rollout, or maybe you've rolled it out years ago and it's now business as usual, and you're reporting on the risks and those risks that threaten the objectives. Remember, the audience are only interested in what threatens the objectives that we have set for the organization. So I think the reporting has to be at a high level. You're not going to have 10 anti-money laundering risks at this level. You'll have 1, and you'll know the detail, you'll know the other 10, but you're reporting at a high level. Give assurance. Give assurance to the board that, 1, you're compliant, and 2, that the risks are under control. If this is the purpose, this will determine the content of your report. It might be that you want to make the board aware of some future risk, some risk that you can see as it's there, but it's not causing problems today. But maybe if there's a wave of people retiring next year, you can see corporate memory loss. That might be a problem. It might be new regulations that you want to inform the senior management team or the board about. If the purpose of your report is to get a decision, maybe you're focusing on one particular risk or one group of risks, and you need additional budget, or you need other departments to take some action, and you're looking for the support of the board or of that group of people, that would be slightly different. And maybe you describe the problem and describe the solutions. I'm going to be focusing more on the inform today. Now, it could be that your presence at the meeting, it's for 5 minutes, and it's to tick a box to demonstrate, yes, we had risk management on the agenda, and Jerry came in and made a presentation, so we ticked that box. I would say, don't make it a tick box exercise. I would always prompt engagement, because if there's no evidence of engagement in the board meeting minutes, a regulator would look at that and say, you're just ticking a box. So if you're the person presenting, I would say, seek engagement. Okay. So going on the basis of the presentation is about informing, I'm going to go forward on this. Again, audience is the board. You're not going to give them 150 risks. You're going to give them the top 10. If you must, maybe 15, but I wouldn't go beyond 15. Give them the top 10 risks. And maybe summarize the risks. And I'll talk more about this later. So you don't have, you don't have a risk on poor access controls, some detailed IT risk, but you might have an IT security risk of breach of confidentiality. And that can take in an awful lot of the detailed stuff. One AML risk, you get the idea. So keep it to high level risks and try and relate them to the objectives of the organization. I think this is an opportunity as well when you're talking about risks. Say, this is what we've done in the last month, and this is what we were planning to do. Key risk indicators. Now, I've seen people report 5. I've seen people reporting 25. Somewhere in between the two is probably the right balance. But things that give an indication of the trend. If performance is talking about the past, the trend is trying to predict what will happen in the next month, the next quarter. So if you can show the last 3 months or the last 3 quarters, that might point to where it's going to land in the next quarter. Key risk indicators. No list is no one size fits all. So the number of instance operational errors, might be useful for you, might tell you something. Policy breaches, risk appetite breaches, again, it'll tell you something, but it might be you've passed that and something else becomes more relevant. Control effectiveness, I think, is always a good one. Be prepared to answer the question, well, why are those controls ineffective, not effective? Part of your report should be the plan. If you've stated the current status, it's an opportunity to state what you're going to do for the next 30 days, the next quarter, and to ask perhaps for support with that. Maybe it's other departments that you need coming back to you with information. Here's an opportunity for you to ask for help. Certainly if I'm a board member and you present something, I'm waiting for you to tell me, what do you want me to do about it, if there's anything I can do with my influence. So let's have a look at some of those. Now, I'm not a big fan of presenting Excel spreadsheets to boards, but I put this one up, and you could even leave out the score and just show the top 10 risks. But you might want to show it in red, amber, and green. But the key line here, I think, is the last one, the trend. Certainly if I'm a board member and you present risks, I want to know, is this getting better or worse? So have a trend, how does this compare to the last board meeting or the last quarter? You can put the date in at the top as well, the comparable date. It's today compared with the 1st of January. And you can see here, I've taken a sample of one getting worse, one new one. The blue circle is so I would indicate a new risk that wasn't there the last time we reported, one staying the same, and one that is actually decreasing. This, as I said, if you're talking about the top 10, just keep it short, keep it sweet. If you want to give an overall picture, I mean, these 10 in my graphic here will be at the corporate level. It might be the 10 or 15 risks, and I got a few red ones. But if you want to give the whole organizational picture, here I can see Yeah, it's over 50% green. I'd like to see 80% green, but I can see that there's a bit of red in technology, under data protection, and under business continuity. And that seems to be a problem area. You can see already a graphic is giving a picture. Now, it's not a great picture for this organization, but you get the idea that a graphic can often communicate very quickly, assuming you have lots of green. You might have a little bit of red. That's what you're trying to show. You're communicating two messages there. Look, 95% of this is good and under control. Yes, there's a couple of areas that we're worried about, and you'll probably focus on those. The key performance indicators, I think you should be showing a trend, showing the last 3 months or the last 3 quarters. And very quickly, somebody looking at this can see, oh, well, operational errors, that's getting better at least. So you won't get questions on that. But risk appetite breaches, we used to be good, and now we're in the red. And again, anticipate questions, and maybe it's in your presentation, and you say, since this came to light, we have already taken action against it. So, but you're communicating a lot of information here, I think, in one small graphic. And then another one I would include is control effectiveness. And again, if you have some in here that are poor or ineffective, expect questions. Expect questions as to what are they, and maybe if you're doing this live, you can drill down and go into the details, but you don't have to do that. I think if you've only got 10 minutes, you won't have time for that, but certainly know what the detail is and be ready with answers to questions. Again, I'm assuming, and this would possibly provoke engagement if you put something like that up with, you've got 8 or 9 controls that are not effective. When it comes to compliance, I see generally non-compliance is a big risk. And if you consider that most organizations have tens, if you know, I would say at least 50 and possibly over 100 regulations that they have to comply with. And yes, you might say to me in your organization, it's 200. I would believe it. So if I'm a board member, I need assurance from you, if you're the compliance officer, and maybe you're the risk and compliance officer, that we are compliant with our obligations, that the controls are effective, and if they're not effective, what are we doing about it? Do we have policies and procedures in place? Now, I would say the regulator won't punish you for not having a procedure in place as much as they would if you have a procedure in place and you're not following your own procedure. So you need to be collecting evidence as well. You need to be checking that people are actually doing it, doing what you've laid out. And this is just a sample of a report we did. That's 200, I think, and 74 things that you need to be doing to be fully compliant with DORA. And it's a lot, but maybe you do this once a year, and hopefully you'll have a lot more green than I have. But again, you're given that insurance, you have looked at the detail, and you're saying to the board, not this one, but you're 95% compliant, and then you can focus on the areas where we're not compliant, and it's marginal, it's not material. Again, you're giving assurance to the board. And I think graphics can go a long way towards giving that big picture. This isn't a great one, by the way, so I'd be fixing the gray bit before I'd present this one. Okay, actions. What evidence can you show that mitigation is happening? What tasks have you completed, in the last 30 days? What are you planning for the next 30 days? And I would focus on the top 10. And this just is an example of another report. Now, could have been added onto the risk one, but here my focus is really on what we're doing about it. And you can talk about things you've done and things you're planning to do. Again, keep it high level. And probably what I haven't put in here, and the other one is the objective, the strategic objective that these risks threaten, if you like. And finally, on the detailed one, and again, I know this is an Excel spreadsheet, but just for the principle of it, you could have a list of the top 10 risks, and you can see on the left-hand side there's a chevron. And by clicking on the chevron, you can expand it and see the detail. And actually, from our system, you can export these to Excel, and people can look at the top 10. And if they want to drill down themselves and see the detail, they could do that. But you want to be presenting it at the high level, but know that you can drill down into the detail if asked. If you present the board with 100 risks, they won't read any. But if you give them 10, they'll have a look at the 10, and hopefully they will have questions. And again, I would say relate these to the strategic objectives. So I think my time is up, but I'll say focus on what's important and relevant. And for that, you need to know the purpose of the meeting. Use graphics where possible to summarize. It'll communicate, picture paints 1,000 words, right? Be prepared to give the detail. And that's where you need to do your homework. Because if there's true engagement, they will ask you questions and then you can give the detail that they're interested in. In summary, I would say inform, give assurance, and aid decision making. So people can use your information to make the right decision for the organization. So I'm going to finish there. And just a reminder that our sixth and final, I think, session is next week on August the 6th, and it's called There's Another Spreadsheet Gone. And it's more on reporting, and it's maybe going into detail on tasks and on incidents and how you might summarize that, but also trying to I think get things off spreadsheets and get them into a presentable format. So Chris will be presenting that one next week. So if you have any questions, I would say pop them in the Q&A. I don't know if the chat is enabled, but the Q&A is. And I'm sorry for going over the time, but happy to take if you have any in the Q&A. I will have a look now. And maybe it's all, I know these are very short. That's the intention, that the webinars are short, and hopefully we've just provoked a few thoughts and ideas in your mind. How do you recommend reflecting compliance when the compliance officer has its own reporting line to the board? That's anonymous. I assume you're saying me as the risk officer, if I'm reporting. Well, if you think of the three lines of defense, the risk officer, and I say risk officer rather than risk manager. So the risk officer and the compliance officer are at level 2, along with the auditor, and both are given assurance. If I was a risk officer, I wouldn't be ignoring the compliance risk, and I certainly would be including it. And I certainly would be, over a period of 3 years, maybe checking compliance the way the compliance officer does. So I would report on my findings from a compliance point of view. Now, certainly I wouldn't hide that information from the compliance officer. Do you have a report template or sample document we could look at? I have lots of report templates. The ones I showed you here are actually from our system, and we've done many others. I don't know anybody who knows our system. We have a built-in reporting tool, and we've done lots of bespoke reports for customers. So yeah, happy, Joanna, if you want to email me directly, my email address, I don't know if it's actually on the last slide. Let me just check. Yeah, Gerard Joyce at calQrisk.com. If you email me directly, I'm happy to share a few templates with you. Maybe tell me, is it about risks? Is it about controls? Because maybe it's a combination of both. Okay, guys, we like to keep these things short, so hopefully you got something from that. And before you ask, yes, the slides are available, and the recording of this session is also available on our. You'll get the link, but we have a whole library of them, and you can look back at the other 4 sessions, and hopefully you can join us again next week. Thank you for joining today. Bye-bye.